All you are very good. Welcome to the economics class. Today I'm talking about the theory of consumer behavior. At the very basic level that the consumer we all know is a rational man. It means a consumer think before spending the money and the consumer makes choices, and this could be understood by the production possibility curve, what we know already. The next term that we explain in this chapter is the utility. In general, utility means all we know that is need, want, or demand. But in economics, the term utility refers to the quality or the capacity of a commodity by virtue of which it satisfies our wants. In other words, want satisfying power of a good is called utility. So it is measured in terms of utils or units of utility. It cannot be measured in objective terms. Actually, utility can be measured in subjective term. So utility has two main forms. One is marginal utility, another is the total utility. Students, we already know the what is marginal utility and what is total utility. In economics, there is a relationship between the marginal utility and total utility. It can be explained with the help of the following diagram. You can see the diagram. The first column, we have units of a commodity. Second column, MU, that is marginal utility, and all you know that it is measured in terms of utils. And the TU, third column, it is total utility. So you can see we have 6 units of a commodity. And the very first unit when you consumed the marginal utility is 6. And you already know what is marginal utility. And the total utility also 6, because total utility is the summation of the marginal utility. If you get the 6 your marginal utility, total utility also is also 6. Now you consume the second unit of that commodity. You get 4 marginal utility. So what's your total utility? You know that total utility is the equal summation of marginal utility. So 6 plus 4 equal to 10 is your total utility. From the third unit of the commodity, you get marginal utility 2. So what is your total utility? So previous one 10 plus 2, it's equal to 12. Now 4, you can see 4 marginal utility is 0. So total utility is 12 because 12 plus 0 is 12. And the 5 units of the commodity, your marginal utility tends to negative, that is minus 2. So total utility, what's your total utility? 12 minus 2, 10. And the last unit of that commodity, that is 6, marginal utility minus 4. So what's your total utility? 10 minus 4, it's equal to 6. So what is the relationship? It can be explained in terms of the graph. You can see the graph. The graph in horizontal axis, that is x axis, and the vertical axis is y axis. In x axis, we measure commodity. In vertical axis, we measure utility. So we know in our table we have the 6 units of commodity. That's why in horizontal axis it start from 0 and it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In vertical axis we measure the utility. So utility is 0 from start to 0, then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And after 0, in the right side, the right below the line, there is minus 2, minus 4. So the question may be arise to in your mind that why the curve start from the utility 6. You can see in the table that our marginal utility and total utility both are start from the 6. That's why our curve it starts from the 6. So your question may be asked, then why marginal utility tends to the downward sloping? Because we can see from the table that marginal utility after 4 units, in 5 and 6 units there is negative. So you know and the table that negative minus 2 minus 4. So it starts from 6. Marginality from first unit of commodity is 6. From the second unit of commodity, marginal utility 4. From the third unit of commodity, the marginal utility 2. And the fourth, you see the fourth unit of commodity 4 and the marginal utility is 0. That's why the marginal utility, it along with the unit number 4, it says 0 in horizontal axis, and after that in fifth and sixth there is minus 2 and minus 4. So marginal utility, it can be positive, it can be 0, or it can be negative. And you can see the total utility. Total utility starts from 6, then second unit is 10, then 12, and the maximum point. When is get the maximum point? 4 unit of commodity, that time total utility is maximum. And after 4, total utility gradually declining. That's why total utility tends to the downward sloping. So what we learn from the curve, that total utility is always positive. It's never total utility, never 0. In the beginning, total utility increases. See the graph. In the beginning, total utility increases. Then after reaching its maximum point, it starts to decline. So what the relationship? When marginal utility positive, total utility increasing. When marginal utility 0, total utility maximum. When marginal utility negative, total utility declining. So this is the relationship between the marginal utility and the total utility. And what is law of diminishing marginal utility? We know marginal utility is a change in total utility. That is, if you consume one more utility, there is some change in total utility. And from the previous table, where we draw a relationship between the total utility and marginal utility, from that table we can see that more of a commodity, the marginal utility gradually decreasing. So it states that marginal utility tends to decline as more and more units of a commodity are consumed by a consumer. In other words, as more and more units of a commodity are consumed by the consumer, the intensity of desire for a commodity tends to decrease. This is called law of diminishing marginal utility. According to the given table, marginal utility tends to diminish as consumption increases. It is important to know that as more and more units of bananas are consumed by the consumer, marginal utility tends to diminish. As from 8, 6, 4, 2. It's 8, it's 6, now 4, 2. If we increase the consumption of a commodity, the marginal utility gradually decreasing. When consumer consumes 5 units of bananas, marginal utility will become 0. And after that, at the consumption of 6th unit of banana, marginal utility will become negative. So basic assumption of this law may be one, only standard units of the commodity are consumed, like a cup of tea or its spoon, not its spoon. Consumption of the commodity should be continuous. So you can see one table, units of commodity, that is we take a product that is bananas and another is the marginal utility. You know that utility is measured in utils according to cardinal approach. So you know the from the first unit there is 8, second unit 6, 3. So third unit we get the 4 marginality, from 4 unit we get the 2 marginality, in 5 unit we get the 0, and the 6th unit is minus 2. So negative. So first is positive, gradually decreasing, now 0 and the negative. And the marginal curve tends to decline to the downward sloping, and after the 5th unit of consumption it's negative. So law of diminishing marginal utility is also called fundamental law of satisfaction or fundamental psychological law. Thank you. To explain the utility, they explain two types of approach. One is cardinal approach, another is the ordinal approach. Cardinal approach is given by economist Alfred Marshall, and the ordinal approach given by the economists Hicks and Allen. Then what is the difference between to this approach? Alfred Marshall, he said that utility, that is satisfaction, can be measured in quantitative terms or in numbers, in numerical factors, but Hicks and Allen say that satisfaction cannot be measured in quantitative terms. It has some preference. Consumer have some choices. It is measured in terms of rankings. Maybe someone like apple, someone like bananas. So there is some choices or the preference. So to explain this, economists use the indifference curve. So they explain indifference curve in terms of the ordinal approach. The concept of indifference curve. So concept of indifference curve is the ordinal approach. So what is the curve? Actually, the definition of this curve is that this curve showing the different combination of two goods. Our assumption is only two goods. Each combinations offering the same level of satisfaction to the consumer. To explain this definition, we take a table, and in this table there is three columns: combinations, number of apples, and number of oranges. Combination, we have four combination A, B, C, D, and number of apples 1, 2, 3, 4, and number of oranges 10, 7, 5, 4. From the first combination, that is in our example A combination, there is two goods. One is apples. From apple, number of apples 1, number of oranges 10. B combinations, there is number of apples 2 and number of oranges 7. And C combination, number of apples 3, number of oranges 5. And combination D, the last combination, number of apples 4, number of oranges also 4. So these two combinations from where you get the same level of satisfaction. So we try to draw a graph according to this table. In horizontal axis there is apples, in the vertical axis we take the oranges. In apples we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0 is the origin, and the oranges 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And you can see the graph. There is a combination A. Combination A, apple 1 and oranges 10. Combination B, apple 2, oranges 8. So according to this table, we draw a graph, and we can see the graph is downward sloping from the left to the right, and it's also called the negative sloped line. So the first properties of indifference curve is that indifference curve are negatively sloped. It shows that more of one commodity implies less of the other. Is it? You can see the table. So that total satisfaction at any point of indifference curve remains same. And you can see if you see the graph, the indifference curve is not concave to the origin, it is convex to the origin. Because of what concept? Because of diminishing marginal rate of substitutions. And then number 3 properties of this curve: each indifference curve represents a different level of satisfaction. So they never touch or intersect each other. And number 4, a higher indifference curve represents the higher level of satisfaction. And higher, if there is one indifference curve to a higher indifference curve, that higher indifference curve represents the more satisfaction from the other one. And number 5 properties is that indifference curve touches neither x-axis nor y-axis. Because of what? Because it is assumed that a consumer buys a combination of two goods. That's why it never touches x-axis or y-axis. Thank you very much. This is the little concept of utility. If you want to get more, then know more, then you can comment on the below. Thank you.